Namaskaram. We'll start with a prayer. ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः वागर्धाविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्धप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ. Okay. We will look at 21st Nama. Just also wanted to check if anybody tried the Marali Mandagamana and Mahalavanya Sevadihi practically this week. And any experiences you might want to share after you have done that practice. Or at least tell me that you don't know what that practice is and we can redo those two namas.
I didn't get that, Guruji, because I did practice, but I don't know what you meant by that. I just read it, that Marali Mandagamana, that all that I went through as usual, my homework. But I don't know what you are trying to say, Guruji.
Okay. Jai Shri Ji.
Ask, please repeat that, Guruji.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, just to make sure that if we needed to repeat it, I don't mind repeating as many times you guys want me, but so Marali Mandagamana, the immediate, straightforward meaning is that mother's gait is like that of a female swan, which is a slow, beautiful Mandagamanam. We talked about that, but we also associated that the deeper meaning is the yoga, the sadhana meaning is the breath. That is a controlled breath, a regulated breath. And we actually talked about Hamsa Soham, the Prana Pratishtha mantra that we used, and the Mahavakya, Hamsaha and Soham, as part of the inhalation and exhalation. I don't know if anybody recollects that.
I was trying to do it, Guruji, this week.
Okay. So practice Soham breathing during Parani. Shanti ji, would you like to tell us about your experience?
Well, I didn't mean to come into the forum, but I do pranayama regularly, and so I do the different types of pranayama, Viloma, Kapalabhati, and different things. And our teacher has taught us this, but she is Canadian, so she doesn't use the word Soham. And she just tells us to do equal inhalations and equal exhalations. And we could extend the inhalation and extend the exhalation equally. So when you told me about this, I just related that. I mean, as you talk, I relate a lot of what you're talking to my yoga practice.
Nice.
And I find it very interesting because in this culture, we cannot talk about Hinduism. Our teacher cannot talk about Hinduism because there are people who don't want to relate it to Hinduism and coming to the yoga class purely for the yoga, for the mental stability and whatever.
But they can steal the stuff and not give credits.
They cannot acknowledge it openly. That's the thing. They may believe in it, but they cannot acknowledge it in a class.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they can steal it openly, but not acknowledge it openly. Yeah, sure.
Open. Yeah. Personally, they may practice it, and which is fine. I respect that. But I find it very interesting that when I'm taking your classes, I relate it very strongly to what you're teaching.
Yeah.
That's all I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So we said hum is the exhalation and saha is the inhalation. Or if you did it the soham way, the so is the inhalation and hum is the exhalation. And if you do and just do that regulated to Shantiji's point, like equal inhalations and exhalations, but extended inhalation and exhalation, then what happens, involuntary, we do that, and what we call is the ajapa. Just involuntary, the japa is continuously happening. So Srividyaji, would you like to share about that? The Sudarshana Kriya? Sorry, you're on mute.
I just mentioned to you, like, actually, it's Sudarshan Kriya, like, I have done it. It's Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's, like, one of his happiness program. They do the
Yeah.
Sudarshan Kriya. So they do Soham in different breathing speed, actually.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
uh, like very fast and then medium and then actually it was an amazing experience. First time I still remember when I did first it is a 3-day program in his ashram in Bangalore. So
Mm.
first day actually I had a severe headache
Mm.
and the teachers were very nice, like who were teaching us. She said no, that's very normal. Then we did his satsang and
Mm.
actually at the end of the satsang I was feeling better, but still I had a headache. But the
Mm.
third day was the best part, like you feel so clean, your body feels so clean, and the food also is given by them, so it is very sattvic food they provide
Yeah.
3 times a day. I mean, it's very hot and fresh food. It's not I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It is not very I don't think it's super tasty, like as per the current way people make food. Even I make food like that. Not like Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's, like with to make it more tasty, I add masalas, but
Mhm.
but this place, what I ate, but I found it tastier than what I make
Mm.
or whatever I eat in hotel and all. It'll be very hot and so maybe that food and Sudarshan Kriya, everything was like, and the third day it was a bliss.
Yeah.
But it is very difficult to maintain it once you come out of that place. But that breathing really cleans your, like body. I felt very, very, I mean, maybe, I mean, blissful or joyful or, the third day. But it was very fast breathing and then medium pace and then very slow. So he told us when you do at home, do it 25, 25 and 45.
Mm.
I mean, that kind of, like yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that was the numbers. Maybe it might be slightly different, but I don't do it now.
Yeah.
So
No worries. Thank you
I
for
don't do
sharing
it.
that.
This was way back in 2005.
Yeah.
So now it's 15 years is over. But it was good.
Yeah.
For sure, it was good. Yeah.
Guruji, I want to add up some more to that
Sure.
meditation. Also, Guruji says in our conscious mind, we keep on collecting all dust and all lot of things.
Correct.
So we have to clean that by doing so hum so. You slowly you have to clear all the dust from your chinta.
Mm.
So you clean all your karmas and all your and you're erasing all those bad karma, whatever was recorded in your chinta or consciousness. Slowly by doing that, your all the negative this thing recorded in your chinta will be deleted from your that's what I understood from there.
Very nice. Thank you. So in this one, they're saying that if you do the Soham, basically the Anuloma Viloma, just equal breaths for some period of time. They don't prescribe like very number of set of cycles or anything, because this is it talks about yoga but doesn't give you like the specifics of how to's. But there are some aspects of yoga that are embedded into Lalita Sahasram. If you do that and observe the slow breath, like the manda gamanam of the breath, then you will get the Mahalavanya Shevadihi, which is the Satchidananda Rupini, the mother. And Mahat, actually, Mahat Shabdam is Brahma Vidya, right? So to understand Brahma Vidya, this meditation or this pranayama is quite helpful, is how you can interpret these two together. Okay, so try practicing it for a day. But generally, what I personally observed is pranayama is one of those quickest ways that actually you can start feeling, much lighter, and you can see results quite quickly. So if you practiced it the right way. Okay, moving to the next nama, Sarva Aruna. So in the next line, so there are 3 namas actually: Sarvaruna, Anavadyangi, Sarvabharna Bhushita. So that line has 3 namas. In the next line, Shiva Kameshwarankastha is 1 nama, Shiva is 1 nama, Swadhina Vallabha is the 3rd nama. So there are 6 namas in this sloka. Some commentators have interpreted in the second line is a little differently, but we will look at that as we go into that nama. But currently, you just need to know that there are 6 namas in this, and we are looking at the first nama, Sarva Aruna. So simple meaning, like everybody understands, Sarva means everything, Aruna means red. So mother is all rosy hued. So that's the straightforward translation. Or you can also translate it like, just, extend it a little bit and say shining all around with Aruna Kanti, because we've been looking at some other namas previously where mother's sari is red, her cheeks were like, the Padmaraga Shilas. We've seen all of those. So her garments, ornaments, flowers, color, they're all rosy tinted. So we've seen that. But what does rosy tint really mean? The red color is attributed to Agni Tattvam. And we'll see what Agni Tattva means in a little more detail. So what they say in Puranas, in Brahmanda Puranam, that universe gets rays from her feet. And what kind of rays? There is the Surya Kanti, the Agni Kanti, and the Chandra Kanti. So there are 3 planetary or astronomical or the Panchabhutas, basically, that are giving us the heat that is required for the universe to exist and sustain. So they say Surya, and we've seen in the previous namas too. Surya,
What was the last one which you told?
Surya, Agni, and Chandra.
Thank you.
Okay, so Surya is the Adhishtana Devata for Drishti, for the eyes, and Chandra is the Adhishtana Devata for Manas, and Agni is the Adhishtana Devata for Vak, the speech. So even like, the Vedic mantra that's quoted here is like Agnir Meva Chishritaha Vag Hridaye from the Lagunyasam. We actually say Agni is the Adhishtana Devata for Vak. So these are the Trikaranas, right?
Sridevi,
Uh-huh.
the Suryan and Agni, right? It's the same, isn't it? No?
No.
Okay.
So I don't need Surya to light the fire on my stove or the body temperature that I have. So even in the night, when Surya is in a different position, I'm still warm, and I can still know there can still be Agni. What is causing them all to be the bright and the hot is the Agni for sure. Like there is heat in all of these things. So take heat as heat separately, and sun and moon that are giving Earth the temperature that is required, or that is giving us, that are giving the plants and to germinate and produce the fruit.
Okay. I'm going to think it as set and subset.
Sure.
I don't know if it's
they're subset of the whole Panchabhuta, the Agni Panchabhuta. But there are 3 aspects of the Panchabhuta, how we are getting the energy. We are not getting directly from heat itself. We are getting sunlight and heat from sun, and we are getting heat, like, sunlight and heat from, or sorry, moonlight and heat from the moon. And we have heat separately. You can put it as subset if that makes you happy.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Guruji, Surya to eyes, Agni associated to Vak, Chandra was associated to what is?
Manas.
Okay, thank
you. So Surya with Drishti, Chandra with Manas, and Agni with Vak, the speech. So we call these the Trikaranas, to be able to see, to think, and to speak. So these are then the Trikarana Shaktis, are the Surya, Chandra, and Agni. So the mother is the original cause of all of these 3. And we have previously seen where the Surya Chandra are connected to like the mother's eyes, her ears, and her breasts. And we have seen some of the previous mantras or previous shlokas for those with those meanings. Now, the third part that we have to understand, and actually I've written it as the 5th part. Yeah, because the third part of the deeper meaning, because we already had like 2 parts that are pure translations. So Surya Rashmi is yellow colored, Chandra Rashmi is white colored, and Agni is red colored. So there is a whole In Aruna Upanishad, there is a particular sloka that we use as our Guru Mantra in Sri Vidya. It's called as like Vande Guru Padadvayam Avang Manasa Gocharam Rakta Shukla Prabha Mishram Atarkyam Traipuram Mahaha. So Rakta Shukla Prabha Mishram. So the mixture of red and white that causes the universe. So we will look at that as we go a little more into this sloka. So Surya has 116 rays according to Aruna Upanishad. Chandra has 136 rays and Agni has 108 days. Put together, this is 360. So what they say, this is a complete, like, circle, which actually represents Kala Chakram or Vishwa Chakram, a completeness of the universe and its existence. So both time and space.
Can you please say that again?
Sure. Surya has 116 rays. Chandra has 136 and Agni has 108. Put together, there are 360 rays. And 360 obviously represents a full circle, right? So both, therefore they call it the Kala Chakram or the Vishwa Chakram, representing both time and space aspects. Okay. So then looking at another meaning. So we have seen like the Shiva and Shakti combination, right? Like throughout Lalita Sahasranamam, the non-difference between Shiva and Shakti is appearing multiple times. And we've seen the meanings of Prakasha and Vimarsha. So there is the Jyoti and there is the Kanti. And so Jyoti is the Deepam itself and Kanti is the reflection of that light in the room. And we say the Jyoti is red, it could be a red flame, but it is distributing white light across the room and creating brightness in the room. The other part of it that we have to also think about, the Jyoti is not moving. The Jyoti is in one place. So it is Achalam. And the what is spreading outside, that is the Chala. So he is the colorless and she is the all the colors is what we say. So from the white light, like, again, the color theory, from white light comes all the different colors. So the creation from the Suddha Spatika Sankasam, right, like from Shiva, emerged all the colors as a mother manifested into the universe. So I did not read this in book, or like I heard it from the same Agama Shastra professional that I spoke in the previous class. So he actually mentioned something else, that white blood corpuscles are the factories of RBC or creating the red blood corpuscles. So he compares the white blood corpuscles to Shiva and red blood corpuscles to the mother. And he says they are flowing throughout the body as the Prana Shakti. So just wanted to bring that reference as well. So also think about the Vibgyor colors, right? Like how red is, you can call it the starting color or the ending color, depending on which way you're looking at it. But she is the origin of everything else, or she's the ending of all the existence when you look at it from a color standpoint. So that's why there is the Sarvaruna. And just connecting this back to what we were seeing yesterday in the Upadhis, the crystal with a red flower right beside it, the crystal will then reflect as red. So essentially, the Maya Avritti that is happening in the consciousness, we would just, are unable to separate the two, and we would see everything as the Maya because she is perceivable. And it is Vedas that can tell us what that consciousness is, and that is Brahma Vidya. So there is one more practice, and this is not listed in, and many of these meanings are not listed in Saubhagya Bhaskaram, though we take that as the origin, the first set of meanings. Some of these meanings I've collected over a period of time, and by listening to other pravachanas and reading other translations and some other books. So in Sri Vidya, we talk about, I mentioned it previously, all the Samskrita Aksharamala, the Varnamalika from A to Aha, that is considered we call them Matrukas, and we have Dig Devata, the Vag Devatas that are presiding deities for each of these rows of Aksharamala. So we assign the Agni Kalas, Soma Kalas, and Chandra Kalas, Agni Kalas, Soma Kalas, and Surya Kalas. Each of these kalas, like, each matrika represents these kalas. So the first 16 vowels in Sanskritam alphabet, we call them the Surya kalas. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so they are the Agni kalas. And the last Yam Ram Lambam, so that section is the Soma kalas. And in between what we have, like the Ka, Chata, Tapa, those 5 vargas, we divide that into 2 different sections of Surya kalas. Depending on whether you're coming from R to Aha or Ha, we actually do reverse too. So Ha to so that's an important way of getting these kalas. So as a practice, you could actually do when you see a Paurnami moon, step out and absorb those Chandra kalas that are that are being spread into the universe. We generally keep our doors locked and sleep at that time. But when you see a full moon, step out for a second and absorb those kalas. And if you don't know all the other mantras, that's fine. Just chant the matrikas from the Sanskritam alphabet. Just wanted to bring that reference. So I'll post a picture of the matrikas and which are related to which kalas. And there are names for each of those kalas. So we say Amrita Ye Namaha, Manada Ye Namaha. So there are many, like all of these have names and they represent various energy centers in our body, various nerve centers in our body, and how, as you can all imagine, like in all the planetary systems, the moon, the sun, they all have influence on our mind and bodies, especially we actually say there are some sayings too. And if it's Amavasya, Paurnami, we say our mind functions differently. So how to utilize that in a more beneficial, more spiritual manner, in a more sattvic aspect. So there are nice practices for it. So I'll just post something about that after the class. Any questions before we move to the next nama, Anavadhyangi?
So, sorry, Guruji, you said Agni is associated to red, Chandra to white, Surya to?
Yellow. Sorry, yeah, Surya to yellow.
Can you please explain that connection between the Mars planet and Ma? They both are red, right? There's some connection between.
Correct, Satiji. I wanted to do some research after you posted that question. I know there is something, but I don't quite recollect it now, so I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm recently forgetting my homeworks. So I'll have to just note it down. Yeah, I know you mentioned that, right? The red planet Mars, and how is that connected to Ma? Okay.
Red and yellow gives the orange hue. The red and yellow gives the orange hue to mother.
Correct. So we saw that, right? The champaka punnaga, the flower mixed with red. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, thank you.
Aruna Kausumbha Vastra Bhasvat Kati. The red and yellow mixture of her sari. Okay, so we'll move to the next one. So there's a lot of detail in this, but I will just keep it simple and move to the next part. So Anavadhyangi, the simple straightforward meaning Saubhagya Bhaskaram gives us is faultless limbs. So essentially what that means is like faultless swarupa or dosha rahita swarupa. And what are doshas? You can just take it as any doshas, as a physical dosha. But what in a cosmic context, these doshas are asti, jayate, vardate, viparinamate, nashyati. So there are 6 stages of, the something is born, exists, and then grows, then changes shapes, and there's change that is continuously happening. Then it declines or reduces, and then just dies. And we've seen that in Swaminathan Mama's presentation too. So there is a slide about it. So I'll definitely post that in our forum or in a Google Drive folder. So mother is somebody who doesn't have all of these changes or of these doshas. She doesn't have that. So she is the permanent existence in the universe, is what the Nama is talking about. So therefore, because Shiva is also not somebody who actually goes through these changes. So essentially this Nama is also the connection between Shiva and Shakti, that there is no difference between them, and they are exactly the same. So he is the Paramatma and she is Paramatma's Shakti. And there is no difference in their attributes of sorts from the eternity, but there is a difference between them in terms of manifestability and unmanifestability, if that is even a word. But in some other aspects, they're not different. There is one more set of doshas that are given, and I forgot to note down which Upanishad actually talks about these. So they are asatyata, basically something that is not shasvatam, that is a dosha, but she is eternal, and so she doesn't have that dosha. Anityata, which is always changing, so she is not something that changes, so therefore that dosha doesn't apply to her. Jadata, which is not Chaitanyam, that is something that is Jadam. So she is Chaitanyam herself, so that dosha also does not apply to her. And Paradhinata, dependent on somebody else. She is not dependent on anybody. So therefore, that dosha also does not apply to her. Then Purushyata, Paurushyata, basically something that is created because of involvement. There is a creation that's happening because she is not created. So she is Apaurusheya. And Sadhya, something that is achievable, but she is also something that is not easily Sadhya. So she is Asadhya. And Parichinata, something that is limited, is a dosha when she is limitless. Therefore, even that dosha does not apply to her. So in this context, Anavadyangi means she is not faultless, or dosha rahita is the word. So dosha and fault is very crazy translation, but note down as dosha rahitam. Okay, so moving to the next nama, Sarvabharana Bhushita or Sarvabharana Bhushana. There are 2 different variations in these, so you can do either. They mean the same. So she's wearing all the ornaments, and there is a Abharana Stotram which talks about mother's 54 ornaments. And the deeper meanings, the esoteric meanings that are given in that stotram is mantra connections to each of these abharanas. So essentially every abharana that we talk about that mother is wearing, from the head to the toe rings, each of those are very specific mantras that are given to us to activate specific energy centers. So we can experience her in her full glory. So what they're saying is she is wearing all sorts of ornaments. And as we go and look at a couple other meanings in the Sumeru Madhya Sringastha, we'll come back to this. Essentially, she is the essence of all the mantras is one of the meanings, or she is the. Why don't we just go and look at that particular nama where we are about to go get into this in more when we actually get the amnayas. So we'll mention this back into the mantras part. But she is wearing all the different abharanas, and abharanas represent mantras and shaktis in an esoteric way. Okay, so thus far we have seen mother's description. So
Sridevi ji?
go ahead, Padmaji. You're muted, Padmaji. We can't hear you.
54 or 64? 64.
54.
Okay.
54.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we do 64-step puja for mother. Like yesterday, I posted something about 16-step puja, the Shodashopachara or the Panchopachara puja, right? There is a Chatushashti Upachara puja for mother that is only done for Lalita mother, like, not anybody else. So that is 64-step puja, but the abharanas are 54. Okay. So far, we have seen the description of the mother. So based on the Lalitopakhyanam, if everybody remembers that, there was a Bandashura Vada that needed to happen, and all the devas congregated to do yajna to invoke Shakti. And the mother manifested herself from that Chidakni Kundam. And as soon as she appeared, we are starting to describe her from the Keshadi Padanta Stotram that we've just completed. How, both Brahma Saguna Rupam and the understanding the esoteric meanings of each of these things in a cosmic, how the universe has formed. And we have described her until now. Now, what is going to happen? And she was taking steps towards Kameshwara, right? So the next nama is Shiva Kameshwarankastha. The literal translation for this nama is she sat on the lap of Shiva Kameshwara, the Kameshwara. She is sitting on Kameshwara's lap. So what does this mean? Just there is in Lalitopakhyanam, there is a beautiful story that goes with it. So now the queen has arrived and they have to crown the queen. So as that ceremony is about to start happening, our Brahmaji, Chaturmukha Brahmaji, had a thought that mother, we can't crown just the mother. She needs to have a king so they can crown them both. So every time, mother takes a new form from Uma, from Parvati, like there are many forms of mother. Every time she takes a new form, Shiva has to marry her again. So they say, Brahmaji was a little hesitant that mother is so beautiful. And Shiva is looking with the snake and with all the bhasma and everything. So he was a bit hesitant. So Shiva realized that what Brahmaji was thinking about, and he immediately changed his Swarupam to be suitable to be married to such a beautiful mother. And then Brahmaji said, yeah, now you look good, and there is a ceremony that's about to happen. So it actually talks about mother comes and puts a mala in father's neck, and then they're walking towards the and Lord Narayana, as the elder brother for Lalita Parameshwari, he does the Kanyadanam to Shiva. And then there is a description of Kameshwara Kalyanam that we won't go into. And then as mother sat in the lap of Shiva, and there is the crowning ceremony that happened. So there is some meaning, deeper meaning into this that is important for us to know. And there is a connection to Sri Chakra as well. So we'll just quickly look at that. So Shiva is Nirgunam or Nirgunatitam. Because he is not affected by the Rajas and Tamas and Sattva gunas. And we talked about this, that the universe has manifested itself because of the imbalance or the Sankalpa Matrena, the universe was created. And when in the unmanifested position, in the unmanifested state, all the gunas are in equal balance, and the Shiva is Gunatitam. Right, and he is the Tejaswarupam. But with the sankalpa to give fruits of actions for all those causal bodies that are just in manifested form, with that sankalpa, Shiva changed into what we call as Ishvara, because he had a desire, and he is now Ishvara, that form that he's about to take. Therefore, combining those two together is the Kameshwara, somebody who has desire to create the universe. So when this desire has formed, that is Ichcha Shakti, right? And then as soon as the desire comes into picture, then he has the knowledge on how to create the universe because he doesn't have to read a book to do it. So there is Jnana Shakti that comes into play right away. And then he created the universe. So there is the Kriya Shakti also. So there is an Ichcha Jnana Kriya Shakti combination with Kameshwara. That's an important aspect for us to understand. And because the knowledge of creating the universe is not like a cookbook, it is called as prajnanam. It is not just jnana shakti, it is the prajnanam is the desire itself. So the two aspects here, and we will see 5 different names for Shiva from here on, and I will just explain what those will be as we go a little further into the meanings. But here now we are seeing 2 different aspects. There is Shiva and Ishvara. So Shiva is the Srishti Atita. He is not created the Srishti and he is beyond this creation. And Ishvara is the Kameshwara because he has the desire to create the universe. Okay, so and in a Shiva Stotram we actually say Satya Kama Satya Sankalpaha. So he has that Kama and the Sankalpa to create this universe. So if Kameshwara is Kameshwari is nothing but Kameshwara's Sankalpa Shakti. And what they say by praying to Mother, that is giving this Shakti for the desire Shakti, the Ichcha Jnana and Kriya Shaktis to Kameshwara. By praying to her, our Sankalpas also will get the Shakti and all Sankalpas will become will materialize. Okay, so because Sankalpa is within ourselves, right? In the Sankalpa that Bhagavan has created, or it happened to Bhagavan, it is within him, it is not outside of him. So there is that representation of Mother sitting in his lap, not beside him. Or the Ardhanarishwara form, she is not separate from him, she is in him as his Shakti. Okay, so that's the meaning for this one.
So is Kameshwara's Sankalpa Shakti? Is that what you said?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So now we will move to the next beautiful nama, Shiva Namam. So note that Shiva with a Hrasvam is the masculine form, and Shiva with a Dhirgam is a feminine form. So the nama that's here is Shiva. So this is also considered the Rahasya Namam or Paripurna Namam. It is a complete Nama. And here we are representing her to be, she is the Paramatma Swarupini. She is no different from him. So that's a very straightforward, important thing to understand, that there is no difference between Shiva and Shiva. So Shiva Bhinna Shivankari is what they say. So she is the Sarva Mangala Swarupini. So Srishti is manifested, and Shuddha Spatika Swarupam of Shiva is the unmanifested form. So again, going back to the Prakasha Vimarsha analogy we were talking about. So there is the Jyoti and there is the Kanti. The Jyoti is not Chalam. So he is Achala, and she is the one that is spreading the light across the room. And therefore she is the Chala. So essentially it's the manifested and unmanifested forms that are Shiva Shakti. So we actually say, Shive is how we call Mother. So, and actually that reminded me of the Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadike. So it's an important nama is what we hear. Moving to the next nama, Swadhina Vallabha. So we'll just take Swadhina as somebody who is, how do we translate this? I don't want to use the terms like has power over, has controls or regulates somebody, but those are the closest meanings that come to mind. But she does Swadhinam on somebody, like, I guess, like, that's a more easier word for us all to understand.
influences, right?
Swadhinam takes in control, to be honest, more than influence. More influence could be like the vasham. Okay. So the other different translation for the word swadhina is to be dependent. So if you take the straight meaning as like, somebody who has control over, or who is in this particular context, I'll just explain it and then you will understand the meaning. Somebody who is in the swadhinam of the Vallabha. Vallabha is the husband, right? Like, her husband. So she is in the control of her husband, or somebody who is controlling the husband, depending on how you do samasa for this word, Shivasya swadhinam or Vallabhasya swadhina is how we can do it. So she is in control of her husband, or she controls her husband. Like, don't take it in the wrong connotation. That's a very bad translation. But she is in the swadhinam of Shiva, and Shiva is in swadhinam of her, because they can't exist without each other. So that's like, a pativrata lakshanam, they say. But think about the term as adhina is to be dependent. Swa plus adhina is somebody who is dependent on themselves. So both Shiva and Mother, like, Lalita Parameshwari, both are dependent on their own self. So they are independent of everything else that exists. They are independent of each other, but at the same time, they're so connected to each other, they're inseparable. Without one, the other doesn't exist. So that's the meaning that needs to be taken. Okay. So we are at 10:43. I don't want to go into the next beautiful nama that's coming up, where I will explain in detail what Sumeru Shrunga Madhyastha means and Sriman Nagara Naika means. So we actually do something called as Sri Nagara Puja, which has 44 different namas, and those are not given in Saubhagya Bhaskaram. They are from Parashurama Kalpa Sutras. So I would like to just go through those 44 namas quickly, and that I wouldn't have enough time if I started to do that now. So any thoughts before we pause for the week?
Guruji, I don't know whether this is a relevant question here. Like with so many things, why some people only like to pray to Vishnu, to Devi and Shiva, when so much of connection is between everybody. And some people also I don't know whether I'm making sense here. As you were talking, I was just thinking about this, like so beautiful, and everything is interrelated and so much of connection is existing.
Yeah.
And but still people we are Saivites, Vaishnavites, and things like that, right? So why is that, when so many meanings and so many beautiful things are existing? I don't know whether I'm making sense, but as you were talking, this was the thought which was constantly coming in me.
Absolutely. And there is nothing wrong in that in a way. It's just, when we get attached to a particular form, that's fine to just love a particular form, and that's totally okay, as long as you don't insult any other forms. Because ultimately you have to understand that the Saguna form that we are giving to Bhagavan is a form that he has manifested himself in, but it is not him throughout the existence, the universe. Just thinking about the number of galaxies, billions and billions of galaxies that have been created in the universe, and he is, all of these are in his adhinam. Understanding Bhagavan in various forms, like, just now we've been seeing as, Shiva is different than Ishvara, because there is just some, he has a desire, therefore he is now Kameshwara or Ishvara. And then we will see some other aspects, like, when the same Bhagavan, who is the unmanifested form, pervaded himself across the universe, we call him Vishnu. It's like, there are not two different people, and he lives in a different house and I live in a different house, and sometimes we fight and sometimes we get along. They were trying, through Puranas, they were trying to tell us the secrets in a more reachable, achievable formats, but we have to elevate ourselves beyond that. And as we grow in mentally, we have to understand there is no difference in all of this, and that Saguna form is also, we are limiting Bhagavan to a form and saying, okay, that is the Vigraham that he is in. Everywhere else he is not. So therefore I can do whatever, as long as I'm not in the temple, I can chew a pan, I can spit a pan somewhere. So that is the limited understanding, and not understanding the full complexity of who we are in this creation. As we recently, I think Anuji shared, or Bhaskarji, somebody shared the universe, right? Like how small speck of dust we are. And we say there are grades and gradations in Bhagwan. We say, okay, this Bhagwan is better than that Bhagwan. So that actually we should just do some reflection at some point to say, is that true, or am I just misunderstanding something? So as different, getting attached, like I'm very attached to Saguna forms. I'm not saying I'm not, and I love a particular form of Bhagavan a lot more than any other form. Doesn't mean I see difference or grade that any other form is lower than the other. That's the only elevation we need at this point.
Guruji, I think even what my classmate had said, even that was ringing into my mind too, because as we were going on, because I wanted to know, as everything is there, the universe is created, and we all only heard and all that. We haven't seen anything. Say like omnipotent, omnipresent. So we say that all gods together means, whether it is, I believe some people have different, like even in us, we have different gods, but at the same time, different religions have different gods, but all of them is only one is the one Shakti, that's all.
Correct.
Correct. It's that one light which we are seeing. Something is there, there's something powerful is there in that which we haven't seen, but we feel it, we felt it, and that's it. Is that correct?
Correct. So there is only one, the only one truth, Ekameva Brahma. Ekameva Satyam is what Vedas say. And that one Brahman, Parabrahman, has taken different, like, just by adding desire, we just saw that transition, right? Like, has transitioned into the universe. So from one became many, and many will become one.
Okay, so that means that, so each one has that, like for you, it is, you don't want Nirgunam, but you want the other one. So you're taking that form, and each one is taking their own forms for their own satisfaction in order to have concentration and go on with it. And with that belief and all that. But actually all this culminates to one only.
Ultimately, yes. So Vyasacharya has given us 18 Puranas and 18 Upapuranas, right? He has written Vishnu Puranam, he has written Linga Puranam, he has written Shiva Puranam, he has written Brahmanda Puranam, he has written Skanda Puranam. So by just doing, giving us what, different things that we get attracted to as human nature. I can't just say this pen is the God and that's it. I will not believe in anything else. That may not be suitable to everybody. So it's what's suitable to us and what we get attracted to. We start with that, and then we elevate ourselves to understand that there is no difference in all of these 18 Puranas. Ultimately, what Vyasacharya is, if you look at it from a 30-foot level, he is trying to say the same thing in different contexts with different names. Ultimately, he is just combining all of those and saying there is only one Brahman who is ruling this universe. And I think watching NASA documentaries on space and galaxies actually gives you a perception of what are we, and recently I was having this discussion with a researcher, very educated person, but he was hell-bent on gradation. Matsyavatara is at a lower level compared to Narasimhavatara, is compared to Krishnavatara, as the Purnavatara is compared to something else and something else. And I said, okay, I really I'm aghast thinking that you are grown enough to grade Bhagavan. To me, that did not gel with me. To be honest, I was very taken aback.
May I ask, Namaste Ji, may I add something here?
Please go ahead.
the thing is, I mean, we were talking about all the, different Shaivites and Vaishnavite philosophies. Whatever I say is like, there may be multiple philosophies as different routes, but ultimately the destination or the goal is one Parabrahman. So
Correct.
that's what it is. I mean, you might be talking about, hey, I believe in Shaivite, I believe in Vaishnavite, I believe in Shakti. No matter what you believe, you're just taking a different route, that's all. But ultimately, the destination is only the one, that is Parabrahman. And then similarly, you talked about Saguna and Nirguna forms of, doing sevas to the God. But ultimately, this Saguna comes in various rupas, as you said. I mean, you can do it as a Narasimha Avatara or Matsya Avatara or whatever it is. But ultimately, your goal is only one. So it is just, I mean, what you feel comfortable in what you are doing. That is what we are trying to say here, isn't
Exactly.
it?
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. What appeals to a particular person based on, what their tastes are and, whatever their family
Yes.
traditions are, could be so many different things. But ultimately, all of what
Yes.
Vedas teach us, everybody is following the same Vedas, everybody is following the same Vyasacharya Puranas,
Yes.
everybody is following the same gurus. And
Yes.
ultimately, the goal is going to be the same because one Purana doesn't say, okay, your no Ardha should be your primary goal. All of it
Yes.
says, like, moksha is your primary goal. How you
And to
achieve it?
expand, yeah.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
to expand it a little bit, I mean, it is not just in the Sanatana Dharma. I think all religions, I mean, to be honest with you, they say the same thing, but how you interpret it makes a big difference. I do not say that it is just the Sanatana Dharma that we have so many things like Saguna, Nirguna, or Vaishnava, Shaiva, or other policies. Even the other religions also, it's pretty much everybody will converge into one particular supreme force or Parabrahman. That's what my understanding about religion and philosophy is.
I will agree to some degree on that because there is no moksha philosophy in the other religions, right? There is no merging. So ultimately, you have this life and you lead this life in under the commandments of a particular religion. These are the do's and these are the don'ts. Do this, don't do this, and
True.
live your life wisely. But what we are
So I
talking
agree.
about is like, multiple cycles that will happen. And at some point, you have to understand that you don't want to be in this cycle forever and how the whole thing has to unmanifest back. And God is not somebody who is sitting in clouds and watching us do, and like, we have to go to Him, walk towards Him. But God is everywhere because He's pervading everything. He cannot be omnipotent and omnipresent if He's sitting in clouds. So those are the
I think,
two main
yeah,
differences that I feel.
I think you're right. I mean, somebody actually, I mean, just one small, couple of seconds I would share. Somebody said like, it is, our human life is like chess. The every move that you make, you are on one side and on the other side is the God. What you make, your move has consequences in the form of God's move on the other side. So I guess, I mean, to play this chess type game is very important for us.
Guruji, if I may add, I think the direction of all this conversation is all cleared in Bhagavad Gita. There is one sloka where God says, I am the final destiny, and I also give you the love towards one form. And it is me, that desire inside you connects you to that one form, but it is me itself who is actually connecting it. For example, if you like one God, He is the final reason for that love, even to the other form as well. So I think God is all pervading. So I think that's clearly said in Gita. So I think all our classmates and you are all alluding to the same point, which God already clarified to all of us.
Correct. Exactly.
Very first sloka, I mean, Vishnu Sahasranama says anyway.
Guruji, but as you said that when we watch the galaxies and space and everything, for a moment we are taken, we surprised and we are into that and we think, oh my God, there's nothing which is here. We are all just a small, as you said, that was a beautiful thing, a speck only it is. But as soon as that video finishes, we come back into our original again. And then we think that we are everything and start planning for 5 years and 10 years when we do not know what is the next hour, whether we'll be there.
Yeah, and we
So
try to
true.
control others' lives, and that's the weird part is we think we are in control of everybody else, and we can say, yeah, this is the form, so therefore I'll just dip you in water and you're converted, which is the sad story.
Guruji, I have a question for you. Here we are talking about only our world, that is here. If we are talking about galaxy and space like that, is there any other world or anything in the galaxy or space where same kind of consciousness and things like that exist? Do we know anything in our Hinduism? That's a question.
So they actually talk about multiple lokas, and the loka has like not larger connotation than just a planet. And now we are talking about the parallel universes and all of that stuff, right? Anything that got created has one original source. And when we talk about Parabrahman, we are talking about that original source. And if he has created, say, 10 parallel universes or 14 parallel universes according to our number of lokas, then he is the source, and that's who we are talking about. And we actually gave him a name or multiple names. We gave him a form or multiple forms. And we are saying, okay, there is that original source. And then we are saying, oh, there is his Shakti, which actually created everything. And that actually creates some more differentiation. And then we say, okay, he manifested into so many different galaxies and so many different people and so many different philosophies and so many gurus and so many books. Therefore, now we are actually bound in this multiplicity. What all of Vedas and all of the Puranas try to take us back is to go back to that original source. You are seeing the multiples of him. But when you converge all of this to that original source, no matter what name you give him or you give him a name or not, doesn't matter. Pray to that original source so you can start seeing the intricacy of the connections between all of these multiplicity that exists.
According to Jnana Vasishta, there is parallel universes, right?
Yeah.
Clearly shows the story of Leela.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you. Well explained.
Okay, so we'll take a pause here. My class is about to start at 11 o'clock. We'll do a Shanti Mantram. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Sarvam Sri Paradevatarpanamastu. Thank you so much for your time. We'll catch up next week.
Guruji, धन्यवाद.
Dhanyawadaha.
Dhanyavad, Guruji. Thank you.
See you in the evening, Lataji, Sujata ji. We'll see you in the evening.
Yes, Guruji. We'll be on time.
Okay, sounds good.
धन्यवाद.